So I've recently had an epiphany about sales, and I want to share this with you. It's a bit personal, as all epiphanies are, I suppose, but I wanted to be vulnerable and share this with you because it has just made a huge difference to my life just in the last few days. Everything, I feel like a different person. So I want to share this with you, and I hope you get something out of it. So it's about sales and how sales and relationships is similar. Now we've all heard this. We all know we've heard it a million times. If you're in a relationship, you've had at least one successful sale. That old joke. We all know this is true. That sales and relationships, they're connected. They might even be exactly the same thing. And I've always been aware of this. I've done a lot of sales training. I started my business kind of at the same time that I started the long-term relationship that I'm in. They've both been about 10 years. And when I started learning about sales, what I learned was very old school. Yes, people were talking about relationships and they were talking about know, like, and trust, but there was a lot of that kind of manipulative, kind of, you gotta create the urgency and all that kind of stuff that I don't really go in for. And it took me a while to figure out how to do sales in a way that felt ethical to me, a way that didn't feel like I was trying to convince someone. It didn't feel like I was trying to hoodwink them, and it is very much the way that I approach dating because and relationships in general, because I am intense. I am an intense person. I am not for everyone. I am quite a weirdo, and especially when it comes to romantic relationships, obviously, friendships and colleagues and work, it's all relationships. But especially when it comes to dating romantically, I cannot do the kind of normal, wait 3 days before you call, all those games and all the things that you're supposed to do according to pop culture stuff. I find it manipulative. I find it stifling, and I can't operate that way. I have to just be myself, which I think is good advice for everybody. Myself is very intense. Just I give a lot in relationships. And so I have to be choosy about which relationships I'm in. And it didn't really kind of occur to me that that was also true in my business until just now, really, when I was trying to record this video. So we know things like you need to create know, like, and trust with your audience. We know things like in an ethical sales environment, it's not about convincing or persuading. It's about matchmaking. It's about you have intrinsic value. What I have to offer has value. Do our values align? Are they a good match? It's not about, if someone rejects me, it's not that I don't have value. We just weren't a good fit, and that's okay. And, applying that to relationships as much as to sales has helped me a lot in both directions, actually. When I'm not doing so well in relationships, treating my relationships more like sales. When I'm not doing so well in sales, treating my sales more like relationships has helped me in both. And, they do say that if you're in business, that is the best, it's kind of the best personal development tool out there is to run your own business because it's the human. It's not the business is easy. It's the human that's hard. It's difficult to work around, the motivation and the insecurities and all that. So, yeah, so I was very aware of that. I've been very conscious in pursuing sales trainings that have had an emphasis on the ethical side of things. I'm not a used car salesman. And also, as a service provider, the relationship that I have with my clients begins at the sale. That's not the end of the relationship. If you're selling goods, if you're selling stuff, retail, then sometimes maybe that relationship ends in the sale. But for me, the sale is just the beginning of a relationship. I now have to work with this person. And so I don't want to commit to something that I'm not going to enjoy. And I certainly don't want them to commit to something that they're not going to enjoy. So that matchmaking part is very important. And yeah, it did bring up a lot of my insecurities around money and creativity. And if you love something, why do you have to charge for it? And it's only worth something if you suffer, and all that garbage that goes on in our heads historically. So I've done a lot of personal work on myself in order to get better at sales. I've also done a lot of personal work on myself in order to get better at relationships. So again, they're all together. And something that has bothered me in the ethical sales space is that sometimes people kind of try and get around the ick of sales by saying, well, it's not really sales. Selling without selling, which sounds great, but it doesn't get rid of your issues around sales, So it's like soft selling. And not that those don't have their place, but it means you're not going to deal with issues that you have because you're just avoiding the thing. And I wanted to get good at sales. And I'm not bad at sales now. I think in the last 3 days, I've become a lot better. But even so, it was always a stressful situation for me. I never looked forward to a sales call. I looked forward to getting the money. I looked forward to performing the service. I love working with my clients. But a sales call was always something I kind of had to get through in order to get to the relationship, in order to get to helping my clients. And there's always been a lot of stress and insecurity around that. And it kind of got to the point where, you know, I have confidence in what I do. I know that I'm reasonably good at the matchmaking part, so there'd be some insecurity leading up to the sale, like the sales call. And in a perfect world, like an ideal sales call would go, I was a little bit nervous before. As soon as I get on the call, I'm totally present with the person. I'm not nervous anymore. I'm very much in curiosity, kind of figuring things out mode, just trying to serve them and listen to them. um, During the conversation, I kind of get more excited about like, oh, I can really help this person. It seems like we really vibe. We've got similar values, and they really need what I have to offer, and this feels good. And that feeling of like excitement would actually build the anxiety back. It would bring the anxiety back because now it's like, oh, well, now I want to work with this person. I wasn't feeling desperate for the sale before I got on the call, but now I'm like, I like this person. I want to work with them. I hope they like me. And all those insecurities come in. And then when it goes well, they are also vibing with me and they're also thinking, oh, this is a great match. This person can help me with what I have to, with my problems. They can help me. And so we decide to work together, and the call ends and we start our working relationship. And at the end of the call, I always have to kind of self-soothe a little bit because it's stressful for me. That's the way it used to be before this week, even. But something clicked this week for me, and it's been a long time coming. And I've done a lot of sales training, and I've done a lot of calls, and I've done a lot of practice calls, and this isn't coming out of the blue. But it was difficult to articulate this epiphany, and this is why I wanted to share this with you, because I think there's a very subtle thing that's going on here, but I think it makes all the difference. So, and it's going to kind of sound like I've been saying the same thing, but I'm not. So looking at relationships and sales, something that I have been kind of following for most of my life is that if it's not heck yes, it's no advice. So this comes with relationship advice. If you're not enthusiastically consenting, if you're not like so super stoked about this person being in your life, then you should say no, because you don't want to waste their time. You don't want to waste your time, and life is too short. It's not that they're not a bad person, not that they're not a good person. It's not that they don't have value. It's just that you should be spending your life with people who add to your life and make everything more exciting. Not that relationships aren't work. I'm not saying that, but that work is rewarding enough for it still to be a heck yes. Like, I would never give this up. This is what I want. And I use that not only in my romantic relationships, I use that in all of my life. If it's not heck yes, it's no. I use that in decision making. I use that in my business. And I use that kind of in sales calls when I'm trying to decide, do I want to work with this person? Are they feeling a heck yes? Am I feeling a heck yes? But there was always that, even when I'm really good and really confident, there was always that little insecurity. And I think part of that was because I was still very much in my perspective and their perspective. This is a business. I have something to offer, feeling a little insecure. Yes, I'm a heck yes, but are they a heck yes? And then, from their side. And recently I've been able to feel just so open in that heck yes. And I was just wondering what was different, because it feels almost like, oh, I finally got empathy for the person and I'm feeling their heck yes as much as I'm feeling my heck yes, which didn't feel good because I feel like I have a lot of empathy. But I think the difference is that I'm finally letting myself be that intense weirdo in my business that I've been letting myself be in my personal life. So I have been working, I'm always tweaking my business, and I've been working on my offerings and my services for a while now, like pretty much solidly for the last year. Just been tweaking this, tweaking that. How can I make it better? And I will always be doing that because that's how I work. But I think something just clicked in the way that I've been structuring things, in that now I am finally free to give everything, to be that intense weirdo. Because even when I was coming from my best self and, doing everything right in like a sales call or in a relationship with a client, it still felt quite transactional. Like it is. It's a business. It is transactional. You know, you're getting something. I'm giving you something for money, and you're getting something for the money, and there's an exchange, and that is correct. No one is disputing that that's going on in the real world, but in my internal life, I was too aware of that, and I wanted to just give everything. I want to just jump in and be like, I want to say I love you on the first date. That's the kind of person I am. And I want to be that way with my clients, but it kind of feels like you're not allowed to. And there's all these rules about society says you have to wait 3 days before you call them and blah, blah, blah. And I was taking on more of that than I realized. And, partially because, if someone pays you so much, you have to have so many clients and there are only so many hours in the day and all that stuff. But I have figured my business out to a point now that I am able to give everything in a way that feels freeing. So I'm not talking about giving until I burn out. I'm not talking about, becoming codependent or or like having a confusion of identity between me and my business. I'm not talking about that. What I mean is that I was so aware of trying to run a business the right way that I was exhausting myself because I was holding back. So I wasn't letting myself be fully generous. And I was being generous and I was being in service and I was being supportive. I was doing all of those things, but at like 90, 95%. Whereas I want to just give everything. I want no holds barred. I want to just drop all the fences and the conditions and just be like, I'm all in, all in. But that never felt okay because it's a business relationship, not a personal relationship. And I think I don't know, something just clicked recently. Maybe finally everything all of my coaches have been saying to me is finally sunk in to a point where I'm actually living it as opposed to just agreeing with it in my head. Maybe that's all that's happened. But something has clicked where I feel like that win-win-win. I win, you win, and then there's this extra special kind of synergistic win that happens. Because I've always felt like I was winning because I would do what I do for free. If someone would pay me to do it, I mean, people do pay me to do it. I mean, if I had to pay to do it, if I had enough money and I had to pay in order to do what I do to help people, I would do that, but I have to pay my bills, so I have to charge people for it. But I would do it for free if I could. And so I get a lot out of working with people that I believe in, who do the work and they show up, and I would give everything for them. And I know that they're getting a lot out of it because my favorite thing to hear from my clients is, Danielle, you should charge more. This is worth a lot. I love hearing that because it means that I'm giving extra, and it means that, they feel taken care of. They feel like they're getting really good value for money. So I love hearing that. And so I know that I'm getting a lot out of it. I know that they're getting a lot out of it. But this extra kind of like, oh, I can stop worrying about limiting my energy and just give everything has totally changed the sales call game, which I didn't expect it to, because that's on the delivery side. I've structured my business so that I'm not being exhausted by kind of going, oh, well, you didn't pay for that, so I can't give that to you. There's a lot of limitations on our time when we're selling in a certain way or delivering in a certain way. And I was restructuring my business so that the delivery felt better. I didn't realize how much of an impact it would have on my sales, because now I feel the win for me. I feel the win for them. I can tell it's a no-brainer for both of us when it's a good match. That part is very important. And learning how to figure out if we're a good match was a good couple of years of experience and training and stuff. So I'm not saying you can't leave that bit out. But when you're a good match, that just like, wow, this is a no-brainer, let's do this, hadn't been there before. It had always been, there was a little bit of insecurity of like, oh, would you like me, whatever. And I think it's because I've managed to design my business in a way that suits my personality. And so I want you to look at your relationships. I want to encourage you to look at the way you do sales and look at the way you do relationships and look at who you are and ask yourself, are there any ways where you're trying to do what society says you should do? You know, what, and it's not that it's not good advice. You know, business coaches are saying, you know, you need to manage your energy and you need to make sure you don't give too much so you don't burn out. That's good advice. It was bad for me because it was actually sucking my energy to manage my energy. You know, I have so much energy. I don't have a problem. When I'm in flow and excited, when I'm not holding myself back, I have more energy than I know what to do with. So giving too much is not a problem for someone like me. And it is very much personality based. But that, you know, that for me, it's easier for me to be all in a relationship than to hold back and take things slow. And the same for sales and the same for my business. And that just kind of only just clicked. So look at your sales, look at your relationships. Is there anywhere where you are holding yourself back because it's what a sensible person would do? And ask yourself, is there a way that you can design your delivery system, your sales system, whatever it is, your lead magnet system? Is there a way that you can design that that suits your personality better so that it feels free? Because these last few sales calls that I've done have felt electric. They felt like I feel like an addict. Like I want more. I want more. There was no stress. There was no insecurity. It was just joyful. And I never thought that I'd get to that point. I never thought sales would be something that I would be energized by. I thought it was always going to be something that I had to endure in order to get what I wanted, which was the delivery. And yeah, I got a lot better at enduring it and I got to enjoy it and I got confident about it. But it was always going to be something that was slightly unpleasant to get to the part that's very pleasant. Like, you know, doing my accounts. It's not particularly pleasant, but it allows me to run my business, you know. So there's things that we have to do as a business owner that aren't your zone of genius. But I never realized how much fun and how joyful and how good sales could feel. And my mind is blown. I want to talk about this for hours. I won't talk about this for hours. I will end this video. But I just wanted to say that because I think that if it's not heck yes, it's a no, applies as much to your clients as it applies to the way that you deliver, as it applies to how you choose them. There's so much liberation in this. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited now. I'm excited to try this out with different people. I'm excited to let myself let myself my spirit run free and enjoy this more. Allow myself to enjoy my business more, which sounds ridiculous. All the things that I'm hearing coming out of my mouth right now, I'm like, isn't this what you've been trying to do for the last 10 years? Yes. Yes, it is. But it's only just clicked now, which is why I'm sharing it with you now. And I hope that this is helpful for you. I hope that you are, well, not that I hope that you are sharing the insecurities that I shared, but I hope that you find something relatable in this, that there's something that you can take from this that you haven't maybe used before or that hasn't clicked for you before that maybe is clicking now. I just It's so important. It's important to have that match. It's important to, you know, approach it from a place of curiosity and service, not of desperation. It's important to have that sense of that fullness of self so that they're not competing, you're not trying to fill a hole, you know? And it's important to listen to yourself and trust yourself and know who you are enough to know when not to follow the advice, when not to follow the rules, when not to, you know, follow societal norms and break them so that you can be happy. I hope that made sense. I do feel like it's a bit of a ramble, but it's so important to me. And I could spend another 5 days on this to make it succinct, and I don't have the time to spend another 5 days on this video. So I'm hoping that this made sense to you. I'm hoping that you take something out of it, either in your personal life or in your business life or in your relationships, whatever those look like. We all do them differently. Um, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about what this new all-in feeling and permission is going to do for me, and I hope that it does something for you. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you again soon.